This represents a young man who was killed. His head was severed from his body. His vertebrae, his spinal cord, was in another spot they discovered away from his severed head. They have recently found remains that they believe are also Rasheem Carter at another part of where he went missing. And what that tells us is that this was a nefarious act. This was an evil act. Somebody murdered Rasheem Carter.
Rasheem Carter worked for Clements Mechanicals at the local Georgia Pacific Company in downtown Taylorsville.
My son texted me. This was after him and I had gotten off the phone. He said, me and the owner of this company not seeing eye to eye, Mama. But if anything happened to me, he's responsible for it. I'm too smart, Mama. He got these guys wanting to kill me. And that's what he sent to me.
And then he went missing. And his other body parts are still missing.
He was a Fayette, Mississippi native and an accomplished 25-year-old welder and a highly skilled millwright, which means he worked on machines at factories. Since his car had broken down in September of 2022, he would hitchhike 20 miles back and forth from Taylorsville to the Super 8 Hotel in Laurel, which is where he lived temporarily while he worked his job to get money to reopen the restaurant he named after his 7-year-old daughter. On October the 1st, 2022, Rasheem got into a disagreement with his roommate, who he usually rode to work with, but he ended up walking this day a 20-mile stretch to Taylorsville. While on foot, some co-workers picked him up and drove him to the Family Dollar store in Taylorsville. There is when he called his mother. This is according to his mother's report. And he told her that he needed a ride from there to her house in Fayette. So he planned on staying at the Family Dollar. But this was more than 100 miles away in Jefferson County, where his mom lived. While in the store, Rasheem told his mother that someone had called the Family Dollar clerk and asked if he was inside. Rasheem told me that he left the dollar store when he heard the clerk say, "He's in here." He said that he was being followed by 3 trucks filled with racist white men yelling racial slurs at him and trying to kill him. He then went to Taylorsville Police Department asking them for help and asked for them to escort him home. But they told him that they were not a taxi service and that was outside of their jurisdiction. A month later, on November 2nd, Rasheem's dismembered remains and decomposing body, parts of it anyway, not all of it, were discovered on a private property in Smith County. This is 21 miles away in Taylorsville. Initially, the local sheriff said that they didn't have reason to suspect foul play. Let me get this straight. Someone goes to the police station, say their life is in danger, and that groups of white men are chasing them in a truck and trying to kill them. You then find their body parts decapitated in the woods, and you say that there's no reason to believe foul play, aka no reason to believe a crime occurred? Right. Because you think black people are stupid enough to think that you could just tell the mother and every other one of us that an animal just ate this person, and we would just be like, okay, That's what happened. Case closed. The medical examiner ruled that Carter's death and his manner of death was undetermined. How surprising. While noting that the conditions of the remains during the autopsy made determining the timing of the injuries difficult. Medical examiners are paid by the state and work with law enforcement closely for their cases. A lot of crooked medical examiners who are tied to local law enforcement have been found to be lying in their reports in very serious cases that have been overturned. It's a part of the good old buddy convict who we want and don't convict who we don't want to convict system. A part of the sweep under the rug, systematically racist system that has been created in the United States. This medical examiner is literally saying they cannot do all the things they have been trained to do. They are literally saying they cannot determine the cause of death. Let's not go rocket scientists here. Animals do not decapitate. This was not a suicide. Cause of death, murder. Oh, wow, that took a lot. Number 2, it's hard to determine the time of death, is what the medical examiner is saying. This is something that they can do through looking at the bones, through looking at the weather conditions, through looking at the environment that the bones were found in. Think about this. All of these ancient historians can go back and find bones that's hundreds of years old. Let's just think common sense. And they can tell you what year the bones were from. And they have this all over the History Channel. But you're telling me someone who died months ago, you can't tell that based on what you have? Let's move on. This is why it is not uncommon for people to hire independent medical examiners for their cases. Now, the local sheriff, Joel Houston, is saying that now, after telling everyone that, this was an animal case, there's no suspicion of foul play. Now he's saying, well, we're not going to rule out murder. Listen to his words. He's not saying that they're going to say it's murder. He's just saying that, we're not going to rule it out. We'll leave the possibility open. But then turns around and says that they were waiting for potential warrants for the person that was told to them was the person who was involved in killing him. But then said, based on the cell phone's location alone, they determined that those people were ruled out. Let me tell you something. If it only took the evaluation of whether people's cell phones were to convict people, you would have way less people convicted of crimes and charges. Saying that the cell phone was pinged in a certain place tells you where the cell phone was. And that's used as additional evidence in cases. It is not the end all and be all. It is not if your cell phone is found in a certain place, then you're no longer a suspect in a case. Because we have other things, such as DNA, which he said nothing about. We have other things because what was found was his driver's license, a vape, his phone charger, blue jeans, and that's not even including the remains of him that was found. We have these items, but we haven't heard nothing about the DNA analysis of these items. We haven't heard nothing about the preservation and how they're preserving the evidence that they do have, so that hopefully when the DOJ comes in and looks at this evidence, they can find what they need to find. The same week, the white woman, Carolyn Bryant Dunham, who lied on Emmett Till and caused his dismembering and torturous death by a group of white racist men who picked him up in a pickup truck in 1955, is the same week more remains of dismembered, tortured into pieces body remains of Rasheem Carter, who was being chased by white racist men in a pickup truck, are being found in 2023. History is not irrelevant. History repeats itself. When they say we shouldn't be able to learn about our history, we shouldn't be taught about our history, this is why we should, because history will always show us who we really are and how far we have not come. Stay woke.